So welcome our speakers who are here, and also I think both speakers who are now speaking from Berlin, but in different places in Berlin. I think we'll just start right away. This is a panel that was created, I guess, in response to the Russian invasion, the war in Ukraine, and we want to look at how art and artists, I guess, respond in these times of crisis. This was, I guess, the war in Ukraine is the, I would say, the focus point, but we also are looking at the broader picture as well. And of course, the war didn't the invasion started in March or the end of February, but we know that the problems didn't start then, and crises are always have deeper historical reasons and many other reasons. And but we're going to look at it through the, I guess, the prisma of artistic practice as well. So we're going to start by mentioning that Nikita Kadam, an artist living in Kiev, was supposed to be part of this panel. And last week he wrote us and he said that he is canceling his participation. And the reason he gave is because he does not want to be, or he doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't want to be on a panel with artists from the invading countries of the oppressor, his oppressor, from Russia and from Belarus. That's, now he has wanted to make it clear that it's nothing personal about the artists who are participating. He knows them and respects them and knows their work, but it's more a statement of not being on the same, I would say, I don't want to put words in his mouth. He said he will send the statement and it didn't arrive, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but basically he said he doesn't want to be on the same level, or them on the same level as him. And we,
same platform.
On the same platform, right. And I think we as the conference made the mistake of writing, there will be artists from Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, and maybe putting also this identity, this national identity on the speaking artist. And I think this was a mistake, and it was made from ignorance of understanding the meaning. And I apologize for this and for the miscommunication and maybe transparency that wasn't full transparency towards Nikita, who's in Kiev now. And so I think this is important to say. And of course, we will respond to this in the talk as well. But I'm very happy that Sabina Ennenberg, who is from Kiev but is living now in Jerusalem, was able to come and talk. And Sabina is a clinical psychologist, founder of the Crisis, co-founder of the Crisis Psychological Project, which she will say a few words about. And she's not in Ukraine now, she can't talk about the situation at the moment, but she's from there and she knows what's going on, and she will give us her perspective, maybe a perspective of Ukraine from Jerusalem.
Okay, yes, my name is Sabina and I'm from Kiev. And before the war, I worked as a clinical psychologist and art therapist in Kiev Mental Hospital. And over the past month, I'm working a lot with refugees and with military personnel. But in either event, in this form, a big part of my work is being a witness how people go through hardships, how their voices sound, what are they saying. And at the same time, I can't call myself like someone who look from outside, because I'm also inside this situation and I'm also going through this experience. And today I will speak about Ukrainian art and about my personal experience around this. And I found that I can speak very differently about my work. So it's varying degrees of emotional inclusion or different levels of reflection. But I can do the same when I talk about art in Ukraine today. It seems like there is no place to observers. It's a hard either or appears. Either a creator or an immersed viewer. And in fact, it seems to me that that is one of the main features of Ukrainian art today. Life in connection with continuous pain, suffer, and death. It's now a kind of price of person to be an artist, or an artist to be a person. And I forget about my presentation, of course. So here's some examples. It's what, did you? That's strange. That's a documents, that's a photos turned into artifacts. It's based on images that have become like memes in public mind. It's like translation of some photographs into paintings. Okay, so if artists in Ukraine now, beyond this experience, he's beyond the situation, and if he's beyond the situation, he will not be heard. Maybe time for another artist will come and people will be able to perceive their art. But the people who now live in Ukraine can't perceive anything outside the pulsation of the war, pulsation of his blood. there's nothing but signs embodiments of their pain or love or struggle or tenderness or grief of loss. And art in Ukraine, which is now working, it's kind of exchange of these energies. One dominant which has become the source of everything that Ukrainian artists create in different types and genres of art. There is
I'm not seeing it. Okay. Yeah, now I see it.
And the reality of war touched all the people, all sectors of society, all regions of the country. The creative worlds of artists are defined by photo and video documents from the front line, including private video diaries and appeals of soldiers, photo and video documents of destroyed houses and human tragedies in cities and villages after the Russian invasion, photo chronicles from hospitals and children's hospitals and death of people in personal environment, constant crowded funerals of servicemen who died on different fronts, young men and women. And I don't think that art is therapy today, and I think it never was. After talking with people from the most dangerous places with terrible conditions, I think that the most difficult thing in their rehabilitation is not social reintegration or mourning for dead comrades or close relatives, but understanding this unique existential experience for which a very special language and tool is needed. A language with saturated with maximal right-brained symbols, metaphors, even religious metaphors and symbols. Because with people on the safe territories, I can talk about the meaning of war using words patriotism, humanity, humanism, dignity, etc. But with people who have gone through hell, you need a different language and ability of the therapist or people who are near, the ability to dive into this, into other reality, the reality of life and death and blood and revenge and fire and mortal sorrow. In this sense, art is not a medicine or treatment, but it could be one of these special languages. And art therapy during the war is not quite what you might imagine. It's a very far from situation that I can say, and now I offer you to draw with such and such materials, or prepare plasticine next time, please. That's, it's more like spontaneous bursts of creative energy when you just use something that is there because it's like situation requires it. I remember I worked with a girl after she was evacuating from Bucha, and she has cramps on her lips. She couldn't talk, and suddenly I asked her, "What is your favorite letter? Do you have a favorite letter?" I wasn't expected this question. I just asked. And she started talking with consonants like and then she started say vowels, and then she started combinated these letters. I'm just listening to, and everything was immediately clear. I understand her, and she knew that I'm here. I'm here. And then she suddenly started to sing after that combination, that letters combinations. The first supervision group after Bucha was very difficult. When I created my volunteer project, I wanted that therapists therapists to take part in it regardless in their nationality. Just people to people, just help for help, and it's worked. But after Bucha, it was very difficult. It was difficult to be with Russian colleagues in the same, albeit virtual space. And I don't remember how this idea was born, who suggested it first, but we decided to try not to talk, but to draw. The colleague had described the case, and we responded with drawings. And I don't remember such efficiency, such accuracy reactions. It was a very powerful experience. And yes, in addition to effective professional work, it was a situation where joint creative made a dialogue possible. But they were people who were already ready for a dialogue, at least at an attempt to hear each other and connected by a common cause. So I don't have any conclusions. I have a lot of questions, and I can show you a last work. One of my patients, he's composer, and he sent me that work just before my speech. And I think it's this video is concentrate of manifestations about which I talking about. Yes. it's work from Igor
Igor
Zavorod.
Igor Zavorod.
Okay, now it's okay. Okay, now it's okay? Okay, sorry. So thank you, Sabina, for the it's a very powerful and strong talk. Marina will be our next. Marina Nafroskyna will be our next talker or speaker. She's an artist, a feminist, an activist. She's living now in Berlin. She's originally from Belarus. And she's going to talk about working with her artist project, working with migrants, but I guess also today refugees. Or, okay. So Marina, are you with us?
Hello. Yes, I'm a bit struggling with how to start, because actually it's maybe my fault, because I was missing the previous meeting with the group of all of us today. So I was not aware of the situation that Nikita canceled, or the reason of why Nikita canceled his participation, and also, yeah, more or less I prepared to speak about my work or activities I'm involved in general. So not, of course, it's very much, how to say, connected to their war and the wars in the last 10 years, but also connected with their uprising in Belarus in 2020. So, but of course, I was not preparing it with this focus and this intensity. So it's also, I think, still to me a very difficult situation, and I'm struggling. So it's also not easy to take and to know how to speak about this. Also, you know, from the speaking of the person who was born in Belarus, grew up there, but also spent a lot of time living in Germany and working with different political contexts. So it's you know, due to the war situation and what happened in Belarus in last 3 years. So this is we have a kind of you know, government in exile in Vilnius, and you know, we could see Belarus also as a country being occupied by the Lukashenko government and so on. So this all is not to be solved or explained in a few minutes. But maybe let's try to, maybe we skip the video then, because I'm really thinking how it can. Yeah, thank you, Sabina, for powerful presentation and your talk, and it's not easy to continue from yeah, to you know. Maybe it's we can start with the pictures I sent you. So I would like also to, how to say, to go in the timeline to the 2020, to the uprising in Belarus, and I was also one of the persons who was there, and to ask the question how long it would take to.
You have to mirror.
Yeah, maybe you can make it bigger.
1 second, sorry, Marina, we're trying.
No problem. So we know maybe that there almost 80% of people in Belarus participated in the protest action. So there was one of the biggest protest movement in the latest history of Europe. To me, as one of the participating person, it was almost clear that somehow we will do it. But at the same time, the amount of violence against the protesters was, I think, a way bigger than, for example, during Maidan. So this is what was also coming in the discussions after, with the Ukrainian colleagues during the joint work on the exhibition at Mostatsky Arsenal in 2021. So that was one of, biggest solidarity actions, I think, from the neighbors to invite artists and curators to work to show what the protest was, so I was one of the curatorial group, and 2021 we made a show with 70 artists and Mostatsky Arsenal with the title Everyday Art, Solidarity and Resistance. I still hope that we will get the pictures bigger.
No, we see it big. They see it big.
Maybe you can, close it and then make it bigger and then open it again. I think this is the case.
Здесь
So
всем,
that's why, because
всем видно большие картинки. Всем здесь.
We see it fine. It's just you're seeing it small.
Okay. So maybe we go to the picture number 6.
Number
Sorry,
6.
So I see just the general view.
Wait, how do I see which?
Yeah.
This one?
And go. No, maybe we go from the 6 to 9. So step by step. So I would like to show some installations, few exhibitions from the exhibition 2021 in Kyiv at Arsenal. The exhibition I was co-curating under the title Everyday Art, Solidarity and Resistance. So in the entry we had walls are covered completely with a lot of posters, and these posters are taken from the online archive of now we can switch to the pictures 10 to 14. So sorry, I just see where is a general view. So maybe you go slowly from 10 to 14. So it started by the initiative of Belarusian artists who started to put the visuals which appeared during the protest in Belarus online in order to share it with the public so that people can easily download, print it, and take it again to the street. So it's grow up to the kind of also documentation of this somehow uprising and then growing violence so you see maybe also one of Patriarchat Bepizdets, one of the slogans or posters which was created by the queer activists. And from the beginning of the war, also this archive or this webpage, this platform was used by the Ukrainian artists to start to also to react and to gather the pictures and documenting the war I think this was initiative also work to also start to gather the material together by Natasha Tichasova and Antonina Stibor. Antonina Stibor is a Belarusian curator who was first escaping from their political persecution in Belarus to Kyiv and then from Kyiv now to Poland and so on. And Natasha Tichasova, I think, is still in Ukraine. So this is kind of also joint projects, and I think this also showing a kind of good timeline starting even from their summer 2020 in Belarus. Now we can go maybe to the slide number 15.
It's the people sitting in the coffee.
Exactly. This is outside view of this that space. I co-initiated in 2013. So now we are 10 years old. Organization called Neue Nachbarschaft Moabit, New Neighborhood Moabit, and it was built out of the necessity to self-organize around and with people who lived in a so-called Notunterkunft, in temporary space for asylum seekers. And this was one of the first opened 2013 and almost in the middle of Berlin. And we were self-organizing around the topic of really bad living conditions, which was where people were put in. It started like a kind of just reaction, and as I told, necessity, and step by step it grew up to a kind of initiative and association and self-organized space in the neighborhood. We are not co-founded by the state, so it's all about how to give a space for to create a platform for meeting, for learning, actually. So it's or making a contra concept to this idea of integration, integration, what is central to German government. So 2013, who were the people with we started this, a lot of Chechen mothers or Chechen families who actually were escaping from their, persecutions in Chechnya. And from 2015 to 2018, of course, a lot of people from Syria arrived, and the amount of people who was visiting the space was like, we had between 100 and 200 people each day. And our activities, just to give you an idea how it's organized, so it's different activities which is actually growing from the group itself. So who is there, who can do something, or how to say start a group which can become a collective later, but still a kind of activity of. Of course, it's not just about art, but art is as a kind of general idea, the kind of idea how we learn, how we share the knowledge, so that it's not one is teaching another, so there is no frontal lessons at all. So it's more like groups meeting. It's also, of course, about sharing language knowledges, but also we are exchange artistic practices. So the idea also to that people with professional skills and people who just curious to work together and start looking at how to do it. And through the years, of course, I think that there's a good way also to create a social field, because one of their problems also for people being displaced, so that you have to restart new, and the society is very segregated everywhere. So that's how to create a space where that the people can meet who will never meet if the space will not exist. So if you maybe step by step go from 15 to 19, so you can have an idea of some activities, how it looks like. And then since last year, we also started initiated a kind of new location, which is outside. It's one of the Lido in Berlin. So the idea was, before the pandemic started, to create a Moabit Mountain College. So that is with this idea of course, looking to the experience of Black Mountain College in the US, which was also run by refugees 100 years ago, and almost, and Moabit Mountain College was also on the lake. So finally, we have a kind of new location, which is also in the city, but having a kind of natural landscape. So we start to work also with this idea how to initiate activities outside, and they see this place also as a kind of labor of under the outdoor location. And we do readings, summer school. We run this summer school also for, of course, for families, for kids. This the focus from Ukraine, so a lot of families who arrived in the last months need somehow also support to settle, and this was also idea behind how to react fast and how to structure the time and share also support. Yes, so far, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It was oh, now the video is running. Do you want us to see it?
Just 1 minute is already running, so this is, yeah.
Well, thank you for this very optimistic video at the end.
This one's done in February 2020, so this may be also important to
yeah, by the way, if you want to go back to see the words of the video, we have it on Erev Rav in our magazine, translated also to Hebrew. So. Next we will invite Dimitri. I have to leave the sharing, right? No, stop sharing. Okay. Now we go to Dimitri Vילנסקי is speaking also from Berlin, but he's from St. Petersburg. He could say also a few words about where his, is okay? What I do? Sorry. He was born in Leningrad, an artist, an educator. He's a member of the art group Shtode Alat. And he's going to be talking, his title is, I think, very appropriate, between hard and a rock place. So, the stage is yours.
Hello, thank you for invitation. And you hear me okay? Yeah? Because then I will share the screen and continue. So actually, I share the same kind of let's say, hardness and difficulties, because actually we got to know that Nikita withdrew from this panel because of mine passport and Marina Nafrушкina. I don't know, we haven't got his any kind of explanation, despite we know him personally. And it was very difficult in this situation to decide if we should then not to withdraw. And I have to change completely my presentation, and I would like to read a letter to Nikita, which I just finished to write, and actually it's public document, so I maybe will see if I publish it. So let me read it, and so it's very personal, and at the same time my title referred to the presentation, the project which we realized in 2014.
Wait,
which Nikita will...
Sorry, you have to come closer to the microphone because...
Okay, I'll try. Now it's better?
Yes.
Tell me, yeah? Okay, so I hope it will be stable sound. So actually, between Hard and Rock Place, it was a project that we organized in St. Petersburg in 2014 as a kind of invitation of School of Kiev to come to Petersburg in the midst of outbreak of the war in East Ukraine after annexation of Crimea in 2014. So, dear Nikita, I'm trying to remember how long we've known each other. Probably this happened after the first action of rap group in 2005 during first Maidan. They were kind of in sync with our collective politics and aesthetics of that time. And then we often began to exhibit together in different countries, in Russia and everywhere. And we met and we talked. I don't think we are friends, but we are comrades. When I was invited to this panel, I was inside Russia, keep hoping that we continue our resistance in Russia. But then my house was raided by police, and Olga and me decided to leave the country. Do you think I should stay and go to jail? Do you think I should go underground and take to the arms? Apologize for this rhetoric questions. Recently, I read a Russian interview, which you published at Art Territory, where you said the important words. Let me share the screen here, just a second. Where it is? Where it is? Just no, it's not here. Boo, 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 boo. Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes.
And can you see me at the same time talking?
Yes, we can see you and the...
okay,
yeah.
That's good. That's exactly what I want. So, apologize for this rhetoric question. Recently, I read a Russian interview with you published at Art Territory, where you said the important words. This is a caution as a consequence of the pressure of public opinion in relation to this
можешь к компьютеру подойти? Просто громче говори.
I'm close to computer. I don't know why. Okay, just a second, maybe. I'm trying to check my sound, but it's good. It's supposed to...
Just go close to the computer.
Okay, now it's okay?
Yeah, stay close to the computer.
Yeah, thanks.
Stay close to the computer.
Okay, you'll see my face too close, maybe. Important words. There is a caution as a consequence of the pressure of public opinion. In relation to this pressure, art always comes through the test for independence. Now this exam has become more difficult as it was before. And there is caution as an element of movement through minefield of meaning. Here you are not answering to civil or civic consensus, but to the actual state of things. You are right, we are moving through a minefield of meanings. Now, when you have refused to participate in this discussion with me, because I have a Russian passport, right? I have the feeling that we both hit a mine. It's hard for me to imagine what Ukrainian artists and you are feeling now in the situation of 8 years of ongoing war. Do you remember in June 2014, you came to St. Petersburg at our invitation in the midst of war in eastern Ukraine. Then the School of Kiev published an important document on the condition for the possibility of communication. It was about communication between two schools in the situation of war. I'm not sure if you took part as a teacher in writing this collective text, but you might remember what was said there. Let's read it together. So just jump. Here's actually pages from this publication, which we did in 2014. And here it was done in certain chapters, and one of the chapter, culture as a field for trans-border cooperation, reducing the pressure of territorial borders and professional castes in the process of communication, the impossibility of dividing people into Russian and Ukrainian cultural workers and everyone else. At the same time, seeing cultural workers as a community functionaries, a globalized class that pursue common interests, capable of facilitating communication in conflict situations. Next one. Determine the significance of fundamental position. This is a boring and difficult, but it will facilitate further communication. Finding the method for doing this is one of the main challenges of communication, especially in the course of developing events, when communication is immediately crucial and must take place without risky oversimplifying categories such as Russia, liberal, and so on. The risk inherited in communication. How can we hear the party that cuts off communication? How do you come to comprehend a way of thinking that's foreign to you? How can we assimilate information from afar, from the distance of your capacity for sensory perception, from the position of not knowing your interlocutor? The zero position is when all we know about a person is that they are a person. An individual is speaking to us, and not their nationality, political views, or religion. This idealized situation, when the interlocutor is hidden behind the curtain. All of the differences still exist, but they are camouflaged because they carry the risk of causing communication breakdowns. Preconception, like I know what they are thinking, unpleasant position. And now this document sounds like evidence of another era when the world was different and we were different. I tried to hear your gesture, your silence, your refusal. Until now, I have kept the faith that, like fight against fashion, the fight against Putinism require international solidarity, which doesn't silence any voices, even those which comes from inside Russia or Belarus or somewhere else. And I hope that this value we need to defend together, no matter what country passport we have in our pocket. And we cannot compete who is more hurt and who is more victimized. Your colleague from Kiev, Alexei Kuchansky, wrote important words in early April 2022. It's absolutely inconceivable. It was published as a transitory wide-com article. It's not Ukraine issue. It's absolutely inconceivable, but it seems to be the time when binary opposition is useful. See the difference. Neither Russian Ukrainians nor Russian NATO. The opposing side are Putinism that kills civilians and their environment in order to kill more. And transnational network of those who believe in future, which are alternative to this creepy, destructive, alienated war technology. Then here, Alexei wrote about empathy as important quality of resistance, something that Putinism doesn't have. Don't you think that rejection of communication, that transition from condition of the possibility of communication in 2014 to the impossibility of communication in 2022 could be a marker of contemporary sensibility, which has appeared quite recently and has become a certain model of behavior? I have learned that we should have zero tolerance towards fascism, but now it has become very easy to declare anyone else as a fascist, to blame in violence, to demand collective responsibility, and then empty any space of dialogue. Do I have the right to say that I'm ready to talk to you? What should I do to talk to you? How could I carry the burden of responsibility that you consider could be appropriate to your pain? How can I know about it if the space of communication is cut off? What needs to happen to us so that we can talk again? Once upon a time, this summer, we read in our commune an appeal by Ukrainian President Zelensky demanding that all Russians should be expelled from abroad, regardless of their political position. They should then they could engage in armed struggle inside the country and overthrow Putin. Or better to say, they must be just sent back for collective punishment. I'm not ready to discuss with you now if this call was reasonable or not. Also, some European countries took it quite literally. But it was formulated in rather fairy tale language. Let them, Russians, live in their own world until they change their philosophy. Direct quote. It seemed to us that this appeal was addressed to us personally, as well as your refusal to speak here. And we constantly return to it. Yes, we have been living in our world. And for us, it means that we are building our own space, free from dehumanization, militaristic and patriotic frenzy, in solidarity with comrades around and far from us, in solidarity with the struggle of the people from Ukraine. A space founded on empathy and care. Should we change our philosophy, or should we stay in resilience to what's going on around? We don't know, but the formation of the space was important for us, and maybe it was the only way to resist Putinism. Do you need my own, our silence? Do you want us to disappear? Can I embrace you? And for the talk, I will ask organizers to send to support the fight of Ukrainians against Russian colonial war.
You have to come closer again, sorry.
And the fee for this talk, maybe, okay, I don't know where you lost me or you didn't lose me, but at the end I asked to send the fee for this talk to the fight of Ukrainians against Russian colonial war. Hope it was clear. That's it.
Okay. I think Dima, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I have to intervene here on behalf of Nikita.
Yes, please.
Because, look, on the one hand, I think you heard the introductory
Wait, maybe
words.
just leave the share screen.
Okay, I'll stop.
Okay. So on the one hand, you probably, I don't know if you heard the introductory words clearly by Ronan about how it came to be that he thinks that Nikita withdrew. So it had something to do with the naming practice, not the persons involved only, and probably not at all, but with the way that it was framed. So that's, I think, an important question, whether it was the fact that you hold a Russian passport and Marina holds a Belarusian passport, I assume, or comes from there, is probably not the problem. As far as I understand it, it's the problem of framing. So I think that Nikita, I know actually from my experience only a few weeks ago, Nikita doesn't think in this stupid way. He hasn't reduced, everything to the passport you bear, I'm sure. So I just want to say that the reason why I know this is that we made the same mistake as Ronan and this organization here made. When we organized a a platform with yourself also in it. You remember the Frieze Art Fair sale of solidarity works.
Mm-hmm.
And in those works, we basically first were talking to Nikita Kadan and Alftina Karkadze, and basically we had invited Ukrainians, and we said, oh, and your friends and comrades are coming as well. And we didn't tell them, your friends and comrades, you know, Nikolai Alenikov, Dima Vylensky, Olga, and so on. And so I thought immediately, you're good friends for years. I mean, you've known each other for decades. So there was no question in my mind about that you would accept each other. But I didn't realize the context meant I had to first, or we, Marita Mukanen, my co-director, and I, of Artists at Risk, we had to basically, once a Ukrainian is on the platform, you can't invite a Russian without first asking the Ukrainian. And we created, and this is a very important moment, Nikita proposed, after this problem that existed, they very bravely said, even though we received what's called in modern parlance a shitstorm from their colleagues, the Ukrainian, artists, they stayed on board that platform in solidarity with you and with others from Russia. But they said, please, let's create a protocol for how to invite people onto a platform. And that protocol is still in process. And I should have, Marit and I, Artists at Risk, should have published it already.
Okay.
So in this way, I kind of take responsibility to some extent for this problem.
So I think, I think we need to give it some context also, because so we'll continue this discussion, but I think first, well, in a way, Sabina, you were talking about that the war situation creates a situation of either or, and that's exactly what's happening. You have to choose, almost like choose a side, and also a side of where you stand. We're talking about this, it creates also a mental position of either or. And then, Dima, you were saying about how this calls for building our own spaces in a way, and I think this is also what Marina was also doing. She's building the spaces where, and maybe we didn't create the right space with our statements or with the environment. So it's also creating these spaces. It's also with words. But I would like to go to your next presentation, which I think leads to, because also I think a lot of your work is about creating spaces or creating places for artists. So I'd like to ask Ivo Stodolski, who's a curator, a writer, a theorist, and he's the co-founder and co-director of Artists at Risk, which he will also say a few words about, but I think we're going to talk about it through some theory, through Benjamin's angel of history with her eyes to the future, Lisa Fitko, and activism now.
Okay, thank you. Should I stand? Maybe it's easy.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you very much for the previous presentations. Very, very powerful, very moving, very strong images from Ukraine. Artists at Risk is not what I'm going to talk about today. It's not the subject of my speech for various reasons, including the need to take a kind of a position which is neither nor. And I think we should talk about this later, of this position which is neither all the way this way or all the way that way, but needs to be perfectly understandable, that why it takes a position which rejects the black and white of our various distinctions that are being made today of all kinds, usually due to identity. But today I want to actually talk about something quite different, and it will help us hopefully understand that problem. I want to talk about, in a way, the problem of time, but I want to talk about it in a way that maybe also suits the space. And we happen to be, this is news to me that we ended up here, so in a space that is dedicated to some form of scholarship concerning what, the Bible perhaps? It's some kind of, yeah, it's interesting. And so I found an old presentation that I was basing my talk on, because I gave a similar or a related talk in 2015 in December in Ramallah, when I was at a conference called Walter Benjamin, or Benjamin in Palestine, and at which many things happened which were very provocative and changed a lot about the way I think, both on the ground in practice, but also in terms of understanding what those people who are very pro-BDS think, and what the consequences of their beliefs would be if it became true, which is very frightening. So, but because we're in this Torah center of some kind, I would like to start with time and think about the fact that the Torah has a ban on speculating about the future, as far as I've understood. Similarly, Karl Marx has a kind of refusal to make blueprints of the future. So there's this kind of thing, well, we can kind of do the revolution, but nobody can, plan what happens after that. And I think this is one of the fundamental problems of the 20th century, and that there was no plan. What as some people say, the morning after, I mean, literally in St. Petersburg, when they stormed the Winter Palace, what's now the Hermitage, they drank all the wine in the basement, and they had a massive hangover and had no idea what would happen next. But I'm talking about time and future and progress and things like that today because, as you know, Walter Benjamin wrote a very, very strong condemnation of the concept of progress, especially the concept of progress in social democracy of the early 20th century. And the figure of Benjamin, as you also might have understood, is a figure of somebody who's looking permanently to the past, right? Somebody who's looking at, first Trauerspiel, which is, the Middle Age or kind of medieval form, post-medieval form, but early German literature. But he's always looking backwards rather than forwards. And his most famous, perhaps, writings on the concept of history are exactly about that. And I want to talk about this in the context of another figure. And this figure, and I think I heard a little hesitation when you said her eyes to the future, because you were expecting the angel to be him, no? And so I'm kind of curious, because it might be that in Hebrew, the angel is always he, because strangely enough, probably in most of Catholic and I don't know about Protestant countries, the angel, it's always these, cute little angels, usually, kind of babies, or maybe she, right? So, but that's just an aside. But the point I'm trying to make is that there was another person who didn't consider herself an angel by any stretch or means. She was a communist. She didn't believe in any of this kind of winged imaginary. But I would like to share some images to start to describe her life. So I'll start. Let me just check I have it here. Sorry. Do you see this? No? So it's not working? Wait, I'll try again. Hold on. Okay. So who you're looking at is Lisa Fitko. Lisa Fitko in the 30s. In the 30s, Lisa Fitko was a young underground activist. She was in Berlin at this point. She was born actually in what is now Ukraine, was then Austro-Hungary, in Uzhgorod. But she grew up in Budapest, which she left right after the revolution in 1918. Her family left to Vienna, and then her family moved to Berlin. She grew up in a very kind of enlightened context with lots of books and things, lots of ideas, lots of politics, lots of writers. But when her family saw that she was going to real politics, they said, no, you can't do that. And she just left home, and she went underground, and she lived in Kreuzberg in Berlin, in Wedding, in the workers' district, and worked underground against the rising fascist power. So this young lady just went out and started working. And so in this period, Lisa Fitko was writing pamphlets on park benches, buying illegal print presses to create anti-Nazi literature, and part of various organizations. And I can say now, it was the Communist Party. She couldn't say that all her life because she had entered the United States, where you had to first say, I've never been a member of the Communist Party or anything affiliated with it. But anybody at that time who was really active in the resistance was probably a member of that kind of organization. So Lisa Fitko died in 2005. You can see some images here from the obituary in the New York Times. She was celebrated. Barack Obama attended her birthday in Chicago. She was a very big figure in America, but she became famous through the Benjamin Scholarship. So Walter Benjamin's story. And if you ever heard of his, I don't know how many of you have come across his story. His story is that after all the permutations of leaving Germany, being excluded from publication, losing his income and everything else, he ended up trying to escape Europe through Marseille, as many thousands and thousands of Jewish people and people who were against the Nazi regime, and ended up trying to find a way across the border to Spain. And she was the woman who took him across that border. So Lisa Fitko, in this point in history, saved at least 100 people on foot, climbing a mountain every day through the darkness of the early morning and the dawn, with the kind of clothes of a grape picker for the wine manufacturers, every morning with several refugees walking up the hill across the mountain to Spain so that they would gain safety on the other side and come through Portugal to the New World, as so-called. So Lisa Fitko's legacy became incredibly important when, through a certain coincidence, a historian brought together her and Gershom Scholem, which you probably have heard of. It's also relevant to this location here. Gershom Scholem, the great scholar of mysticism, who was Benjamin's childhood friend in Berlin. They were great close friends and did everything together, published books together, had a plan for a journal called Angulus Novus, which you probably also know. So the reason why I'm talking about, so to understand her history and how she became well known in that context, well, when Gershom Scholem heard from Lisa Fitko that actually Benjamin had with him on that travel, that kind of climb across the Pyrenees, a briefcase, which he declared to be more important than his own life, and it was willing to fall off the cliff or drink of still water, or not even survive to the other side. His life was unimportant to himself, but his manuscript in this briefcase was more. The question is, what was in this briefcase? What kind of manuscript was it? So now, do you see this? Now I have to unshare. So what I'm showing you now is first, very long ago, a draft that I've written for a feature film, a double biopic of Lisa Fitko and Walter Benjamin. And this image of the angel, which you probably have seen before, I don't know if you have, the Angel of History, which is in the Israel Museum, which we just visited the other day. Has anyone not seen it? I think everyone knows the clay image. Right, and so there's this famous quote, which was used also by Okwi Enwuzor, for example. It's very common in the art world these days. A storm is blowing from paradise. It has caught itself in the wings with such violence that the angel of history can no longer close them. This storm is what we call progress. And so it's this angel being pushed backwards by the winds of progress into the future. But the angel is facing the past, right? The angel is only seeing rubble upon rubble falling before them. And the angel is a male. The angel is somebody who cannot see the future, actually. And so if you would, for a moment, understand time differently, unlike progress, and also unlike the angel that it only is about remembrance and not the blueprints of the future and not the interdiction by the Torah to talk about, speculate about what might happen, then you imagine the other angel, which is facing the future, right? Is facing something that will happen and trying to understand how to solve the problem. And that was Lisa Fitko. That was somebody who physically took people by the hand, walked them across the mountain, and brought them to safety, physically, materially, and not in speculative form. And I think this is where it's important to say that this is kind of an example of the kind of work I think today has to be done in, if you read the preface of my presentation, that the greatest crisis of our time, with all due respect to Afghanistan, Ukraine, Yemen, is right now visible in Pakistan. Has anybody thought about Pakistan? Have you ever seen the images of the 1/3 of a country underwater? I mean, so I would like to share that with you now so that you have some perspective of what climate change actually means. Because this enormous challenge that we're faced with seems to be the true elephant in the room, kind of to refer to the talk of yesterday, the one that we can't really somehow approach except through these kind of representation of some productivity, or some form of, micro movement, to refer to your talk, Jens. But I think that what we are facing is such a grand scale that it needs a different approach. So I would like to show you those images if I can find them. Here. No? Okay. Somehow it's very slow. Okay, there we go. So this is the European Space Agency's view of Pakistan recently. There's enormous flooding. So we have about 20 million people displaced by this monsoon, right? We're basically, if we think about the fact that, like, when we talk about conflicts and crises and catastrophes, that we're talking about day in, day out, Israel, Palestine, or Ukraine, the scale is something very different. What we're going to be facing in the coming years is not, 5 million. It's not even 10 million from Afghanistan, or 20. It's going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people on the move. So this is the kind of thing I believe that if we are to be really serious about where we stand today in the world, the biggest, most important thing we have to do and cannot not do anything about is global warming and climate change. We have to do something. If we don't do it, it's just too late. It's stronger than, and all the other things that we care about and that we're trying to avoid, fascism, nationalism, social inequality, gender inequality, all those things are going to be amplified 1,000,000 times by this enormous crisis we're facing. So I would like to kind of understand, how can we imagine, to learn from this female angel of history what it means to be practical. And maybe Greta Thunberg is also a good example. Somebody who actually goes out and does something. Because we in the art world have gotten very lazy, so to speak, because we've become accustomed to talking really well about something, but having to actually do it is a totally different thing. And I think that in theater, so now we'll talk a little bit about artists at risk, because I don't have forever. In theater, which I've come to know through Artists at Risk, there's an entirely different approach. People are really engaging with the practice of putting people on stage who are affected by it. They're actually inside, and the problem is material. It's not representational. So they don't just show you, oh, I want to talk about this through my metaphor. They actually engage in the project, in the practice. So this leads me, and this will be my final moment to talk about this. I have to find it. Okay, maybe I'll just open it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little about Artists at Risk, but Artists at Risk is an international platform with about 500 hosting organizations around the world at the moment that host artists from all over the world. So we currently have 1,700 Ukrainians on our list. We have a staff of about 20 people matchmaking Ukrainian artists at risk with hosting organizations in Europe. But many artists from around the world do not have that privilege of having a European visa, which Ukrainians, they simply just can walk in the door. But everybody else, practically, including Russians, including Belarusians, but Afghans, you know, Kenyans, everybody else needs a visa. And that means they can't really go without lots and lots of work, lots and lots of preparation. We have 350 Russians and Belarusians waiting for that extra step, right? We have 450 Afghans waiting for us to give them a bloody visa with 2,000 dependents. These are the people who are really in need. It's not a speculative, metaphorical concept. It's they really need to get out, otherwise it's over. They can spend 10 years in jail, they can be tortured, they can lose their head in Taliban, Afghanistan. So we need to do something, and we've built this infrastructure on an international scale, and we're luckily now being supported also by UNESCO in the case of Ukraine, the Goethe Institute on a national level, and also all of Eastern Europe, they support us, but including also the whole of the Swedish National Residency Network. In Spain, we have 2 networks. In Italy, we have 2 networks, and so on. So hundreds of hosts are receiving artists at risk. Now, why am I talking about ecology? Why am I talking about climate change? Because we have another project, and this is the project that I would like to kind of hopefully encourage others to also try to imagine as a true solution, is to work with those people who are like the frontline soldiers of the ecological kind of crisis conflict. So who are those people who are defending the last forests in the Amazon? Who are they? Do we know them? Do we have any great kind of presentations about them on a regular basis? Do we see them dying because the logger killed them because he's going to make, you know, a couple million by cutting down that forest? Where do we put them if we bring them and try to get them safe? How do we find a residency that's not flying them across the entire world, which makes absolutely zero sense if you're an ecologist, to save somebody from, you know, being killed in the Amazon? So you need to create what we call local hubs. So I'll just show you right now how the website of Artists at Risk works, because the Ecologists at Risk website is integrated into it. And so basically, you'll see that we haven't put these markers on the map yet, but we're going to have a hub here in the Caribbean. So if you're at risk in Mexico, you go to the Caribbean, or if you're in Colombia, you could go to Mexico. Or if you're in Thailand, where there's an incredibly huge conflict about water, you go to a residency across the border. So it's a regional relocation system, unlike Artists at Risk, where you can kind of go almost anywhere. And we're trying to implement this kind of real practical solutions, like the actual person who says, okay, we have to climb that mountain. It's not theory, Mr. Benjamin. You know, it's not about, you know, you need to actually climb the mountain. And this is where I think we need to recognize also the component of naming. So it's interesting just for you to hear that perhaps when the French new edition of her book came out, it's been translated into 8 or 10 languages, it was edited by Edwy Plenel, who's very famous for being the publisher of Mediapart, very lefty and all that. But what did he rename it? Le chemin de Walter Benjamin. It's the path of Walter Benjamin, not the path of Lisa Fitko, which it was named after and is called the F route. So we also have to be aware that this masculinist kind of, you know, the great philosopher syndrome will continue to follow us after the 20th century. We have to get over it and start recognizing those people who really do things and celebrate them. And I think this is where, you know, even though she wouldn't have liked it, I think Lisa wouldn't have liked us calling her an angel at all. She said, I'm not a hero, I just did what everyone should have done, and just kind of go out and make it happen. So with that, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You know what, the first talk of Liat Lavi yesterday, when we started, she mentioned that a hope for the future is, she was talking about the algorithms and the computers who are endangering us, the hope will be from women who will bring the solution. And now we ended, I think, with your also statement that also Marina's statement that the future has to be feminist and has to be female for the solutions, which I wanted to ask, you know, Marina, when you asked how to be introduced, you said artist, feminist, activist. And I think for me, there's this, even after this discussion, we still have this question, where does the artist fit in? I mean, is it not, okay, feminist, activist is clear, and also with, you know, with the work we're doing, but is there really a place for art in the crisis? And I think we all try to answer it, but I think this question is still very much out there. So please, if any of you still want to respond to my question or to each other, please.
I mean, I can answer that first because it's part of my job. So I have to justify this, or we do. I should mention that my co-director, Marita, is not here, and we're not talking about artists at risk today, but we're talking about ecologists at risk. But she and I have had to follow this very carefully because our funders demand. We're funded by various arts councils and so on. We have some social funding, some kind of more general funding, but most of it's from art organizations. And so we need to constantly justify the artistic component. And one of the most important things is, well, ecologists, for example, who bring it into a different context and make it into like a museum, and it's a big kind of event about, you know, let's say, Tate saying no more BP in Tate is a huge event. That changes all kinds of things for the public. So I think it's very important that it makes it possible for the person who's doing the struggle in the coal mine in Germany against the coal pit is not just doing it alone, but the museum, the art institutions, they amplify that whole thing, and they use art to make that visible.
And would you like to respond from the people in Berlin? Okay. Did they not hear me? Dimitri and Marina, are you with us? Okay. Sabina, would you? Okay.
But I think Sabina gave the kind of answer to this question. Yeah, also, sometimes it's a matter of find a way how to speak, to survive. You know, we are talking about this, what we experience as a body, as a physical body, as someone going through the really long time of you know, destructions, you know, how to make it as a human. So, and as we are artists, and this is our profession, so I think we need the skills also, no matter how to help us ourselves. Sometimes it's about how to survive, and then if the possibility to act is there, you know, it's not always possible, but yeah, so we can be more active. So.
Somebody's talking from, I'm just telling you that's from the audience. What?
I think the question of art and war should be turned, and all this problematic point that you raised, which is of course relevant, should turn to aesthetics and ethics. I'll exemplify it in a very crucial moment when the communication is in. Okay? When the communication is practically for documenting what is going on, and the manipulation it does in order to shrink our memory or shrink our experience. What I mean is that if, for example, during the media, we get all day news about what is going on in Ukraine, in the end of the day or in the end of the week, we get a clip. Once a clip with slow motion, how beautiful is the war. I have to emphasize it, because when you talk about time of process, yeah, of progress, yeah. No, you talked about.
What's your point?
Okay, what I make point? There is, okay, we have past, we have present, we have future, okay? Walter Benjamin talked that this storm is the future, is the progress, yeah? And you don't like this idea. I agree with you, because it's don't make the horrified practical things that we have to save people, don't make it theory. That's why I involved the communication, the media. The media take actual reality, drop it throw it to our eyes, and then the end of the week or of the day, they make it a very nice clip.
Thank you. Okay.
You don't...
No, but we're not talking about the media now. We're talking about...
it's very important, because it's moral.
It's kind of relevant.
It's aesthetics and moral. If you don't get it, then there is a problem with everything that was said here. Because art, I'm sorry, art
he's the moderator.
is existential. Art is existential, and it's therapeutic. And the fact that you were not able to get from what you expected it's not about you. It's not about them. It's not about you. It's about thinking. Is it existential? I think it's existential.
Okay.
It's immediate.
Sabina, do you want to? Because I mean, I have an example. Maybe would help to get really practical. I mean, there's a theater maker called Seva Kaprinin or something like this. He just was arrested. You would know the name probably, Dima. He's a theater maker who put Brecht on in the streets of Moscow, like as a form of like getting ordinary people to understand their situation without putting themselves at risk, but still creating a theater which everyday people can have access to, and start thinking about the issue without, you know, the legal machinery punishing the theater. But he was arrested, even so. So you can see that, you know, art has a real power that they're afraid of.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's not like that. But it's maybe just being on the street. There was a woman who in Moscow who held an empty sign that didn't say anything, just an empty sign, and she was arrested. So but I think it's also, I think that's the idea of the putting your body, putting yourself where in the situation. It's not only what you say, it's the fact that you're coming as a, and I think this is exactly the point, as yourself, as in your body, to the street or to the square, and saying, I'm here, already that is a political statement, before you even say any words.
It's very material, it's physical.
I don't know about what art can do, and I think that art therapy, it's not a right name, because I'm talking not about art, I'm talking about ability to playing or ability to create. is it art or it is not an art? And now I have this question to artists, because I know how to use how to make people more able to create and more able to play. But I don't know what the artists can do.
Okay, I mean, it's 3 minutes to 2, and we have to finish by 2, but we could just take smoke. Tom, you want to say something? Okay, and then...
I would like to raise one question or thought that we're kind of acting as there's a disaster coming ahead, but we tend to see what we call post as contemporary. So I wonder, maybe let's say it's too late. Let's say we like over the threshold, which is hard for us to know if we are or not. What then is our role as artists? Let's say we're doomed. What's now?
Maybe we need another hour to answer that.
I think artists should answer.
Yeah, well, we go, but I just want to ask Dima a practical question. The letter to Nikita, you are going to make public, and then we could all read it again and more clear.
Yeah, I think, let me think, because actually, you know, if it was real kind of right now arranged for the speech, but if I publish it, I will have to edit it. And thanks for your comment. I'm not sure if I agree, because it doesn't matter how you frame, but you're absolutely right on protocol. That's why, for example, very often people ask why we not invite Ukrainians for certain events. So I organized a lot of that kind of events, but at the same time, I told them almost the same. It's pure protocol. I can't invite Ukrainian artists. They can invite me if they need, but I can't do it other way around. But at the same time, I also would like to emphasize that maybe right now we speak more about that kind of symbolic or more fundamental issues, because I'm super happy that actually collaboration between Ukrainian, Belarus and Russian activists on ground in practical issues, helping refugees, in building some kind of infrastructure, it's still there. And this is amazing. So, but at the same time, I would say, especially for me, why the gesture of Nikita was so painful, because as I said, we know each other for so many years. And ideologically, even, you know, it's great that you talk about Benjamin, because actually we also very much that kind of group which stay on that kind of after Benjamin position and thinking catastrophe and state of emergency. It's our main thing. And for Nikita too. And actually I make a reference to his brilliant interview where he talked about minefield. It was super important. So I mean, even at the distance, even keeping that kind of losing direct communication, I'm sure that he might know our new work. I know he's travel right now. He's in Germany, in Berlin, actually, you know, or in Document. I don't know. It was a few days ago. So, but at the same time, there are some our comrades in Ukraine who has more open position. You are absolutely right about the risk. Maybe many people read my open letter to the release center when I withdrew from discussion after the pressure, and also was trying to not advocate, but a little bit communicate my position. Why? Because actually, also when I prepared, I came into that late document, the document from 2014, and it was really very, very bad feeling how things went wrong totally in many levels. It's not just about war, it's also because we too much speak about solidarity, internationalism, But what we'll see in the conflict between Palestine and Israel, between civil war in Yugoslavia, when this communication becomes impossible. And this is a big humanitarian disaster.
Right.
I don't know, maybe I'm naive, maybe it's really kind of my bad consciousness, but that's how I feel. I can't hide.
I think that's really important that you mentioned also that, and Documenta and Palestine and Israel, because we talked about it all day yesterday, or a lot of yesterday with Nora Stanfeld and Oliver Marchand and others. And I think that it's a similar kind of third position, right, that you need to take, that is neither, you know, that of BDS or nor that of the radical, you know, the right-wing position in Israel. You have to have another one. And the same goes for this time issue. It's not progress, nor is it, you know, regress and despair. You need to, it's non-apocalyptic, as Eco says, you know. It's neither this nor that. It's a different position we have to define that allows us to be completely consistent without being just ideologically pure for a moment and then actually have a very, very complicated consequences of, you know, some feeling of purity for just a few moments. We have to think long term, I feel.
Okay, so with this thought, like we say here in Jerusalem, it's Friday and Shabbat is coming. So thank you very much, Dimitri and Marina and Sabina and Ivo and everybody who came and participated. And thank you also for the whole conference for participating, everybody who is here, all our guests. And we'll meet next year in Jerusalem.
Okay, guys. Ciao. Ciao.